This is GTR, Genesis Timeline and Roots. In a world of fractured stories, timelines buried, and truths erased, one project dares to ask the question: what if everything you thought you knew about history was wrong? This is GTR, Genesis Timeline and Roots. A 5,025-year simulated walkthrough tracing a melanated Adam back to 4000 BC. Over the last decade, new revelations confirm a black origin for humanity, from European vaults to tribal memory, Babylon to Britain. This is not just history, this is a challenge, a simulation, a movement. Meet the man behind GTR, Dr. Wilton MacDonald II, Caymanian, British, Jamaican, haplogroup E and stateless for 26 years. Now a global explorer, 119 countries and counting. A hedge fund lawyer, a UK chartered accountant, a seeker of the lost archives of our people. But the question remains, if all black people came out of Africa, does that make us only African? Or are we also European, Scottish, Native American, Jacobite Hebrew, Asian? GTR exists to answer that question. You've felt it your entire life, that there's something wrong with the world. A splinter in your mind. That splinter has brought you here, to GTR. Whites can't trace their roots before the 1800s. Where's ours? Where are the tribes? The languages, the kings, the queens, the true Hebrews? Where did the giants go? Where are the Neanderthals? Angels, aliens? Why do we speak in so many tongues? Was Babel just a myth? A memory? History has holes. Hollywood has lied. The system was never made for us to remember. Only 5 to 8% of people today are white. And what about the 1800 stories and postcards of the cabbage babies? But nearly all history books center their story. That doesn't add up. Atlantis, lost cities, vanished civilizations, or were they erased? Try GTR. Take the red pill and awaken to the truth of your ancestors. Or take the blue pill and keep dreaming a fantasy. GTR, a simulated walkthrough of Black Hebrew history and eschatology. This is the beginning of remembering.
Well, hello again, Cayman. This is your host, Dr. Wilton MacDonald II, and welcome to another exciting episode of GTR, Genesis Timeline Roots. This is episode and week 27. And in this episode, we're going to unpack a little bit of some of the Jewish genealogy. We're going to bring up some of the famous Jewish personalities and why this is really important. A lot of people are talking about it. They're debating. There are wars being fought over lands and territories and claims. And we need to just try to unpack a little bit of what it means. For me, I have determined, based on the 5 years of searching, that I have the deep Jewish and Hebrew roots. And this goes back for thousands of years as a haplogroup E. The same haplogroup that I discovered of Einstein, who was one of the most famous Jews ever. And I've just discovered Steven Spielberg, which you all love movies. Spielberg is also a haplogroup E, and E being the oldest, being the most populous of haplogroups. Who are the E's, really? And the focal point of the dissertation I'm writing up, what is the default and what was the default haplogroup of Europe and UK prior to the 1800s, or GTR says 800s. It was at E or R, haplogroup E or R. What was the default male haplogroup? And that's the research question to be addressed. But speaking of my own links, I showed you in the prior episode the autosomal testing. But when you look at the more expansive Y chromosome research, then you will see, and I will pause and show you what I'm referring to. Let me share my screen. This is coming from yful.com, which is the major site for male genealogy in the world. And on that site, they will tell you that the haplogroup E, it's the largest haplogroup. The next one over would be ours, but the thing is, we don't know again how many E's are out there, because these tests are pricey, and you have a disproportionate representation. Why I say that is that when you look at those who can afford these tests, they would be typically Westerners, right? White Westerners. And so they have the money to pay and to do the testing. I had to pay part of my research for quite a lot of people, or subsidize their tests in order to get and feature on YFO. So even though the haplogroup E, if you have 10 men, pretty much sure that between 3 and 4 of 10 random men around the planet, assuming a representational subset or sample can be determined, it would be mostly of all the parties, persons represented, the E's would be the largest. But a lot of E's naturally would not have the funding to test. So there could be an issue there which would cloud the results, because you would assume, oh, well, we have 100 people on here, we have at least 40, which would be E's, and then 30 would be R's. And wow, the R's are catching up to the E's. But the R's have more money and access to testing. They, of course, more of them would test than the E's. So one has to bear that in mind. So let me just go into, this is the deeper research database, and showing you who I am, matching with. So we have surnames like, and this is on yful.com. We have Tucker, we have Wiley, we have Henry. Henry is a white guy. The Wileys are mixed race. They're Logan, Alexander Logan. This E, these are all E's, but Logan is a white guy. I'm not sure about this 1777. They have it there as an ancestral match. But definitely they are white today, but 3 generations ago, 4 generations ago, definitely black. We have my dad at the top, sitting at the top. It's my father's match to myself. King and Tucker. He's a black guy, and I know him as his descendant. So he's black, but Wiley would be mixed race. Tom Henry is a white guy. Alexander Logan is well, the descendant. David would be white. Stevens. Here we have black. This father and son who did the test. We have from Puerto Rico. We have a Matos. In the U.S., there is a blank, so someone did not fill out the information, but suspecting that was also a McDonald. And I was in contact with them. They just said Scottish and Celtic, connections, links. We have Graham. All of the 4 samples are white guys. Now we look at another side. Those are the SNP matches, and we turn to, and we have the same gentleman from the first page, but sort of further out matches. There we have Graham again. We have from Saudi Arabia. We have surname Akaldi. We have, this is from Guyana, the Yahya, the bin Yahya, which is Hebrew coming up. We have Brownlee. Then there is a John. This is the Mark Joseph, lives in Cayman, and his father's in the U.S. Also Joseph. That's a close match for me. They right out underneath that, where we have Middle Eastern, Iraqi, Kuwaiti, and from Oman, we have DaCosta McDonald, who is a gentleman in Trinidad who is 109. We have another Yahya match, but this time linking up with Oman. We have a Filipino match, Putuawa. This is a Filipino match. Colquist. There's another was a McDonald matching. So this would be linked to Jamaica. These are my Scottish Jamaican cousins, Alan. We have a Bearden from the United Kingdom. We have the only main sort of African match, but not really African because it's Old French, Norman French. Remember the Bayeux Tapestry? All white people. So this gentleman from Madagascar, Philippe Stefani, mother is Malagasy, father is Congolese, and he has so much the cousins based in Normandy, in France, and Ireland, and in Scandinavia, even today. We have some from Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. We have the Colquist again, Austin. We have Collins. Now Collins showed up as Scottish, but they wanted to refer United States. I mean, who is from United States really? But indigenous black people, but he's showing up as his flag is US. We have Campbell from the UK. We have a Burke and Brownlee. We have Yahya again, that's Hebrew. More Saudi Arabia. We have another Scottish match below. That is my Cuban match. That's Orlando McDonald Brown. He's based in Cuba. We have a Reuben Davis. We have a Davy. We have another Middle Eastern match in Algeria. Ater. Brownlee, Monger, Rand, Herbert Charles McDonald. The family, they appeared white, but they're haplogroup E, so that's Herbert Charles McDonald. They're based in Georgia, USA. So it confirms the line. There is a common ancestry from Scotland going over to Cape Breton and coming through the US. So this is my US cousin, Herbert Charles. We have from UAE again, Ghanim. We have a McGee from the US, and there are others, Middle Eastern calls. Another Collins from England. We have from Georgia Republic, from Tbilisi, a Morrison, a Rand, Johnson, a Peterson, a Corbett, Michael Williams, a Gibson, a Williams, Kenya. Kenya is there. Okay, it shows up as Israel, King David Solomon. All right, yeah, 1000 BC. That sounds about right. So my Israeli brother. And again, in no way is this program or I am anti-Israel. There's no way. It's just trying to report the truth, what I seen to be factual. Here it is. We have someone who connects with me who actually lives in Israel, and he's in haplogroup E. Again, I make it clear that, you have Einstein and you have Spielberg, and they are famous Jewish haplogroup E persons. And Austin and someone from Qatar. So this would be the summary of my cousins on my father's side, linked into Black McDonald's, and strong connections to Hebrew surnames, most specifically the Ben Yahya Davidic lines.
This is GTR, Genesis Timeline and Roots.
Now you asked me, so who would be Hebrew? The debate on who's Hebrew. We talk about spiritual Hebrew or genetic Hebrew, and there is some questions, and you can probably put in the mix. And I don't want to confuse things with being a Zionist, and they are very much into the state and certain rights which they would have, which are really agnostic, really. But if you think about, is it a spiritual connection or one that is a genetic? Now, in Israel, generally, you need court orders. You cannot do free DNA testing. You can try to do this subject to a court order, or what you would do is leave the country and do a test and not do the test there. Why there's that restriction? That's pretty severe. Most countries may have limits, like in the case of Aruba. I tried to find a cousin, which turned out to be haplogroup A. That was, we have a McDermott and a McDowell. We have these Mac sounding names, McDougal too, and they're African-based Black Celtic sounding names. And I had to get special permission to do the tests and have the tests clear customs in Aruba. So we could listen to a clip. I love this exchange between Huckabee. It's part of a clip that was aired.
But how do we know that Bibi, specifically Bibi's ancestors, ever lived here? How do we know that?
I'm not sure if I understand your question.
How do we know if the Prime Minister of Israel's ancestors ever lived?
Maybe I could ask you, how do we know they didn't?
That is like, no, we have a right to be here because my ancestors were here. Okay, how do we know they were here?
I'm totally unable to process what you're trying to get.
Tucker Carlson challenges Mike Huckabee on Netanyahu's ancestral claim to the land. No family tree, no evidence his ancestors lived there, no religious practice. So where does his right come from?
They have connection to this land, historically, biblically.
Do they?
Yes, they do.
If Bibi's family, we know they lived in Eastern Europe. There's no evidence they ever lived here. He's not religious.
But
in what sense? How do we know that? Do you have his family tree? No, we don't.
Do you?
He doesn't. So no one does. That's the point. So how do we know that he has any connection to this land at all?
And if there has been a practice of Judaism and a connection to the language, the Bible, the land.
His ancestors didn't. He doesn't practice Judaism in any rigorous way. His ancestors didn't live here. They didn't speak the language, and there's no evidence they ever lived here. So on what basis does he have a right to be here?
Very much speaks the language. He has fought for the land. His family has fought for the land.
Dodging a very obvious question, which is, where does this right come from? And the reason it's meaningful is because there are a lot of people in the territory that Israel controls today, particularly in the West Bank, who, through genetic testing, we can know.
Again, what Tucker Carlson did when he roasted Mike Huckabee, and after that, Tucker Carlson got stopped. He got detained in Israel. That's widely reported after this went down. But what Tucker Carlson, his point that he was making, that through genetic testing, there is no connectivity. Again, the research subject, and what I'm researching here in my own sort of next doctorate would be the R versus E. what is the default haplogroup of Europe and UK prior to the 1800s? And I looked at this question with the R's. Again, my father-in-law, who I adore and I really cherish this man, is my wife's father. He's an R, and lots of the family members around are R's. My dad's mother's father, a William George Potts, they called him Georgie Potts. He didn't have any sons, but from what we gather, that would make him, he was a projected R. But the R's are not known, but definitely he was pretty much a white guy, like between 80 and 90% white. And he came with his brother from Panama. But I will do the tracing, but from, I'll go to Panama myself, but go from Panama, but I've traced Potts from the US who ended up migrating to Panama. And he came over with his brother, so like an Edgar, he came with his brother, and they moved to Jamaica. They traveled to Jamaica from Panama. But where they got through, a lot of the whites traced their ancestry through Ellis Island, through that New York bottleneck. And that's how they came to the US, not fleeing persecution, but they were dropped off. I mean, from orphanages, Cabbage Baby Links. I mean, they're just question marks, given names, given records, almost like made it up. Okay, so you're from Wales. Okay, you're from Scotland. Okay, you're from Spain. And when people try to trace today, and they are 2, 3, 4, 5 generations later, it's difficult for them to find that remote village in Wales, that remote village in Cork, Ireland, that remote village in, Barcelona or Naples, or in Cyprus, wherever. They just find it hard to navigate. Some are successful, but it's very hard. And there's a reason for that, because they were never from those places. Okay, so God's covenant and promise to Abraham. And I'll just read the New International Version. And this would be the book of Genesis 22:17. I will surely, this is God talking to Abraham, I will surely bless you and make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as the sand on the seashore. Your descendants will take possession of the cities of their enemies. And when you look at another verse, chapter in Genesis, now God again would be speaking, but this time to Jacob. And Jacob's name was changed to Israel. And say, I will prosper you and make your descendants like the sand of the sea, which cannot be counted. And so you have this promise and this prediction, this prophecy of these biblical figures who are black. No curse of Ham here. No book of Enoch painting poor Noah white. And Adam certainly was not white. Adam was black, made from the ground, from the natural. Look up, GTR episode 16. We covered in the black image, created in the black image of God, not just in the spirit of God. Because if man was such in the spirit, why did he succumb to sin? And that's the pastors just get on it in the characteristics and character of God. Well, sorry, you can't equate man's character with that of a holy, divine God, and man's sin and got booted out. So what was it? It was a physical manifestation, physical description. There was no snow in the Garden of Eden. There was natural color of the ground, which is dark brown, black. So these promises about the abundance of people. Today, we look at the numbers. How many? You probably have 10 million, 15 million, those who convert spiritually to Judaism. You have a small segment of the population living in Israel. Multiply now by a certain number for those who are living in the diaspora. So those who are living in Israel, but then those in the diaspora. How much do you really have?
This is GTR, Genesis Timeline and Roots.
So just one website alone, the world population in 2025, we're talking about 15.8 million. Now, does this make God somewhat of a liar? And I would not even do that. I would not blaspheme in any way, but what did God say? What did he actually say? I will surely bless you and make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as the sand on the seashore. Your descendants will take possession of the cities of their enemies. So how come we have such a tiny number? What is that? How does that factor in terms of God's promises? And the 15 million, for it to be considered even 1%, then we're talking about 80 million people. And that would get you to just 1%. So we're talking about less than 1% of the whole planet. And so we have to just figure it out. And I prefer the Hebrew label. I'm safer. When people say Semitic, Shemitic, I prefer to just hang on to the older identification, the older label, as what I am genetically and physically, and according to common sense, according to the records, according to even the demographic data that's there. Let's look at another aspect and slide. The 60 most famous Jewish people. Well, he looks familiar. We'll come to that. The president of Ukraine, Zelensky. So he takes the cover as the most famous Jewish person. We have this Paula Abdul, singer. Oh, my favorite. We have Albert Einstein, and they might have taken some artistic liberties. He had curly hair, he had a little darker skin, but he was a haplogroup E. Albert Einstein definitely was an E. Genotype was black. Elizabeth Taylor, I'm not sure. She probably just, the actress converted. Gwyneth Paltrow, another actress. Mark Rothko, not really familiar with him. Stan Lee. Who else? Stephen Sondheim. Lana Glazer. Oh, Natalie Portman. We know her from movies. Steven Spielberg. My other haplogroup E brother. Mark Zuckerberg. He is a J. So that would make him a hybrid. He's a J. John Stewart, David Diggs, Irving Berlin, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Oh, now deceased. So not sure about her paternal line, but we'll look at that in a second. Jerry Lewis, comedian. Pink, the singer, and her name is Moore. She is a Moore. Lenny Kravitz, a brother. I don't have his haplogroup, but brother nonetheless. Elie Wiesel, Gloria Steinem, Billy Joel. Okay, heard his songs. Jonas Salk, Fran Lebowitz, Gene Simmons, Mr. Exercise, Bob Dylan, Ruth Handler, Barbara Streisand. Oh yeah, we know of Barbara. Kobe Alexander, Neil Diamond, Manuel Batshaw. Oh, President Zelensky from Ukraine. Andrew Garfield, who was the Spider-Man guy at one point. Don't know these other names. Alon Abutbol, Daniel Radcliffe from Harry Potter. Adam Levine, the singer. Dana Agron, Leo Ratz, Michael Isaacson, Art and Garfunkel, again, in the whole Hollywood scene. movies. Adam Sandler. Okay, we've seen him in lots of movies. Sam Altman, Scarlett Johansson. Now, yeah, I don't know if it's spiritual Jew or a little Jewish, but some of them spiritually convert. Gal Gadot, and yes, in all those movies. Ivanka Trump, the first daughter. Lil Dicky, Liz Alpern, Roger Sherman, Ben Shapiro, Jared Kushner, Isaac Mizraha, Jeffrey Goldberg, Theo Epstein. Not sure about the Jeffrey link. There may be one. Sarah Horowitz, Ali Reisman, Joaquin Phoenix. You've seen him in many movies. Paul Rudd, Seth Rogen, goofy movie actor, and Jake Gyllenhaal. Seen him in several movies. Now, I don't see the Prime Minister Netanyahu. That is odd. He certainly has a bit of notoriety. And I did not see this famous Jeffrey Epstein. So let's turn now to some of the deep dives and family tree searches, because we're looking here at the family trees of the small population. We have something like not even 0.2% of the whole population. It's like 20% of 1% of the whole population. What does that say about God and his promises, about sands of the seas and stars of the heavens? We really have to pay attention to this stuff, folks, and utilize our brains. And just think about this for a second. So let's go into deep dives, and we could go into some deeper family tree. And now I am going to my good brother, director Steven Spielberg. And he is a haplogroup E. And his father was Arnold. Now, you could see some flags. Now, the Caucasian were surrounded by a lot of Ukraine flags. But don't get distracted. Please, don't get distracted. We have last surnames like Numerovsky, and I butcher the name now, Chinsky. We have from Russia and Ukraine, which are really paternal, maternal, but follow the chain. Arnold, granddad Samuel, then Herschel, then we're getting from Ukraine into Russia, Pinkas in 1852, and going to Lithuania. That is Simcha, maybe Simca, 1825. And we're going further into Velville, 1791 in Lithuania. Now, at some point, folks, no matter how many white ladies are there, which again may very well be the Cabbage Baby links, we're going to get on to a brother. So Stephen's line, it's the iconic photo of Kenneth McAlpine that I'm using for black icons on my family tree connectors. So I've placed him as the end of the line. That's the end of the journey. That's all I could find on Steven Spielberg's paternal line. We can see that they had a lot of intermarriage into white and Caucasian, but these lines, they just fizzle out. They're not deep. Ukraine, Russia, and then falls off a cliff. I mean, look at his mom's side and what she was. So his mom being a Adler, but she was Posner, Leah. Leah Posner, and her father would be Philip Posner, Russia, but an American grandma who was Jenny from Ohio, and the Friedman, very Jewish sounding name. But we're terminated somewhere from Israel. Israel is a popular first name, Christian name. You have from Poland. Poland is going to feature a lot in this episode. Sarah Leah, born Nathan. That's it. We have Reuben, I don't even know, Niv, that'd be Kurwanski, but Polish, but terminated, no ancestors. We have little information on the mom's side. Even Czech Republic or Russia, we just don't know. But we know that he is a black brother. Genotype is black, and that's Spielberg. So that's the first one we're looking at. And while we're on the topic of ease, let's go to my favorite, Albert Einstein. We have Professor Albert Einstein. Now, he was born in 1879 in Germany, and he died in New Jersey, USA in 1955. Famous equation, E equals mc squared. Now, his mom was a Pauline Koch. That's it, is Koch, and she was born in Germany. Now, let's look and see what we could find in terms of the mother's lines.
This is GTR, Genesis Timeline and Roots.
Okay, so we're back. So it looks like we had Pauline's father was Julius Koch, and her mom was a Bernheimer. These are all Germans. And I spent a lot of time looking at his father's side. So Einstein's dad was a Hermann Einstein, and then Abraham. And then we had Rupert. Now, Abraham's profile is a bit suspect, I know, because we're talking about 1808, and he died in 1868. Now, bear in mind that commercial photography, even amongst the most sort of affluent, it was only available in the mid 1850s, 1860s. So this is suspect, not because the guy is showing up as white, but commercial photography was just not available. And they have a nice little portrait, a picture of Abraham. We have Rupert, then we have Naphtali, we have a David, Einstein, going now further back into 1713, into Germany. Notice that there is just little to no Israel connections, but Black Europe. The Moors Quadrille. You know, one of these guys, Count Friedrich, was German. The other writer of here, next to the king of Poland, was Friedrich von Echtstedt, Black German over there. So yeah, I mean, we basically have as a German blackamoor, not connected to the land of Israel, but a black brother nonetheless. This is the profile of haplogroup E, Professor Albert Abraham Einstein. Now, in all my searches so far, I've come up with two. I mean, haplo E Jews, even I myself, I have one match on my Y-fold profile, and I showed that to you at the start of this program. So they may not be that common. The most common haplogroups would be R, which would be associated with cabbage babies, the R's and the O's, but also the J's. Like Zuckerberg, owner of Facebook, is a J, and a J is just in between. It's a hybrid, neither the original, neither call it cabbage link, but in the middle. So it struck me that this list of famous persons, the current current head of the state of Israel, and Netanyahu was not on that list. He didn't make the list. But let's look. I think I have his tree here. There we have it, folks. The Prime Minister of Israel. He is a haplogroup R, and his subclade, it's going to be R1A Z93. So we know that we see that we have, okay, let's look at his mom's side. There's a lot of Jews trace their ancestors based on maternal, which is not biblical, but that's how they roll as to the maternal tracing. So mom, Tizila, is it Segal from Lithuania? Now we see more Russian and Polish surnames, Suwaki, and it just falls off a cliff. Nothing to report. Dvorsky, Russia, Polish, Lithuanian, Hertz, Segal, nothing. Okay, father's line. We have a Professor Benzion Netanyahu, but it's Mayakovsky. So not even Netanyahu. Netanyahu, who was a name change. So dad changed his name. Grandfather was a rabbi, Zionist. Nathan Mayakovsky. And we have 1850 Lithuania, another Mayakovsky. We don't have any information here. And this is just not even 1800. We have not broken the 1800s. We're still in the 1800s and we're hitting against brick walls. And there's no mention of any residence and occupation of Israel. Lithuania appears to be a very, very favorite place, an ancestral place. And that's in the Baltics. That's right above Poland. And it's closer to Russia. And we know a lot of the Cabbage Baby cards, the postcards, they came out of Russia first. They came out of Russia first in the 1800s. All those, they were advertising cards for the babies. And Lithuania features prominently in all of these sites. So we have dealt with Benjamin Netanyahu. We have dealt with my favorite Spielberg and Einstein. Let's look at Trump. Remember that Benjamin Netanyahu is a haplogroup R, and that's the polar opposite. In the DNA findings and research I'm doing, we have the research question: what is the default haplogroup of UK and Europe? R versus E. E is really the first oldest haplogroup, and from there, A comes out of E. And on the other side, we have R. So R versus E. So we have Mrs. Ivanka Trump, married to a Kushner, and the first daughter. Her dad needs no introduction, the current president, Donald Trump. And he is a confirmed haplogroup R. So Donald Trump is an R, for sure. And his father, there was a Frederick Trump, and grandfather was again another Frederick, but you had this Trump, the PF sounding. We had a Christian Trump. We're getting to the 1800s, and then just surprise. Here we have, knowing the president, maybe his curators and genealogists, they may go back or want to go back. But we have no breaking through the 1800s. As far as I'm concerned, there's no breaking through the 1800s. The line stops with a Christian Trump, Germany, 1829. So no known parents of Christian. And he brags that he has a Scottish mom. I should know a thing or two about, say, Scottishness. Mary Ann MacLeod. And we are going Malcolm MacLeod in Scotland and Alexander MacLeod, a William. Okay, We have a suspect, a Kenneth MacLeod, but that's not confirmed. That's why I have the little green flag. And for those who've seen my tree, there is a druid type symbol and trifecta. This three symbol doesn't mean the Trinity, does not mean the Trinity, but it's witchcraft anyway, but it's from the druids. It's a symbol that is associated with the Caucasus Mountains and the terminal point of white ancestry. And that's it, Kenneth, but I'm not sure about, we have not broken through the 1800s. We're talking about William, was born in 1806. I just don't know. And this chap, Alexander, well, he's fairly old and he died in 1900, so that could be an accurate photograph, but he was born in 1830. That is also suspect because he might have a photograph, which is legit because it's after the 1860s period, but 1830, that's around the time they started their programs, their cloning programs. So let's look at this. We have, okay, so Ivanka's mom is Ivana. She's deceased, so it was. And her dad, again, these are people who are from Czechoslovakia. There's not much history. There's just not much history. Now, the Jewishness in Ivanka, let's jump over and leapfrog to Mr. Jared Kushner. Now, he would be, there's no definitive haplogroup, but it's touted that he is a haplogroup R. And his father was a Charles, and grandfather Joseph, and then a Moshe Berkovitz. I mean, not even a Kushner. They made up, most of these names are just made up. When you get to Adam Sandler, you will see it's just made up. A Moshe Berkovitz. There is no link to Israel. There's no link. Here we have Poland and Belarus for Joseph. On the paternal-maternal, we have a Rachel whose father was Naum Kushner. So it is a paternal-maternal name, but it's terminating in somewhere in Europe in the 1850s, and that's it. Poland, maybe. Now, what is this lady doing with a photograph? Oh my goodness, Chaya. Okay, there's not much. There's no state of Israel. There's no connection. There's no family tree beyond the 1800s. It's just not going anywhere. Mr. Jared, there you have it. Jewish man through and through, but no real connection. Okay, let's go to the famous guy now. Jeffrey Epstein. Needs no introduction. Presumed dead. A projected haplogroup R. There's no official record of him and his DNA. And we have his mom's side. Where were they from? Pauline. Is that a Stolovsky? And a Max from Lithuania? I mean, if I have a betting man, most of these kids came out of Lithuania. And when that Iron Curtain fell, man, they were pumping out babies, man. They were pumping out babies the unnatural way. Zavadatsky, I'm going to butcher some names. Stolovsky, Borovsky, absolutely no connection with Israel. Absolutely none. And they're just terminating. Is this right? Lezhba Stolovsky. That maternal line of Jeffrey Epstein goes nowhere. His dad was Seymour George Epstein. And then there's a photograph of a Julius. We see that. And Poland, Moshe Lieb, 1862. And then a David, a Levy, 1799. Making the cut, 1799. A suspected Mendel Epstein, but that's not confirmed. Flag is up. So we know we have a David and a Levy making just a 1799 cut, but we just don't know. We don't have much history. Lithuania, Poland, no ancestry, an ancestral link into Israel. None, absolutely none. Okay, let's do another another few. There's a couple, but okay, let's do another actor. Now, this guy is Canadian Jew, and he starred in a few movies. Seth Rogen, you've seen him in movies. His tree was hard to trace. I mean, super hard. I got to a father, Mark, in Canada, a Canadian Jew, nothing, absolutely nothing. Tried and tried. I mean, I can't do this forever. I have access to a number of databases. On his mom's side, where is this coming from? Ukraine. We have Belogus and Averbach, sounds almost German. And his maternal grandpa, Coleman Kelly Belogus. And then a Paul and Lander, that's Ukraine. And we have a Sam Shia Belogus. Nothing. He has the most restricted, limited genealogical, there's not even a genie.com profile. And genie.com is pretty reliable, but again, only for about 4 or 5 generations, people trace that far back. Some want to venture into the 1700s and 1600s. I called them out and I said nonsense because there were not that many of you around, so that's nonsense. But that's it. Some people venture into those centuries, but most would terminate in the 1800s. And Seth is a projected R. There's no genealogical information on his haplogroup either, but he is a suspected projected R. Okay, let's keep going. All right, now Jake has been in movies. Gyllenhaal. Jake Gyllenhaal has been in movies, and we've seen his mom now is a Naomi Axe. His father is Stephen, also Gyllenhaal. Okay, we have some fancy coats of arms. And when I look at the coat of arms, I could see that a lot of them are just with no roots. If the proper ones would have Moorish heads, the proper ones, and they would take and sanitize. Dr. Marie Charles does a very good job in pointing this out for European coats of arms. But here we have him flashing something linked to Sweden, a Hugh Anders, well, that's Gillen Strale, and Gyllenhaal. Just trying to find a connection here. Common ancestor, where I meet a roadblock, I would fill in the gaps with a common ancestor. There's a Carl Pettersson, Gillen Strale, Gyllenhaal in Sweden. And this is somewhere in the 1600s. Jake is a haplogroup G. So that would make him like Zuckerberg in the middle, like a hybrid. There could be a connection to Sweden, but like I said, I love this painting. I love this job. There again, the Prince of Sweden, Carl Gustav, 1700s, black as can be, Carl Gustav. I love this. So he claims black Swedish ancestry. Don't know, but G has been mixed. So there could be some black yet in him. Let's move on. So there you have it. Mr. Mark Elliott Zuckerberg. He is a haplogroup J, a lot of the Ashkenazi, another Nice little invented label. He would be a hybrid J, not an R. And his mom is a Karen Kempner, and his maternal grandpa was Sidney, then Harry, Leopold, Bernard. Now, where is this taking us? Well, no surprise. I mean, for this chap, Bernard, I'm getting a conflict. Some records are telling me that this man was born in Prussia, in Germany, and another record shows that he was born in Poland. So could be either Poland, but we're not breaking through the 1800s on Zuckerberg's maternal side. So we reach 1821 in either Germany or Poland. Now, from his father, and Edward, Dr. Edward, US, and we have Jack Zuckerberg, Max, Isaac Moses, a Hirsch. We have relatives in Ukraine. Ukraine, folks. It's really Ukraine. Austria, this Rose Teak. How about this Roseman? Yeah, these records are all terminating in Europe, in Poland, Hollander. This is paternal, maternal. We're talking about Slovakia, 1830. I have done the deep dive. 1830 Slovakia. This is paternal, maternal for Zuckerberg. Again, not breaking through the 1800s, and no residence in Israel. Okay, so we're turning to actress, a Dame Elizabeth Rosamond Taylor. She, of course, doesn't need any introductions. You all know her quite well. Okay, Frances Taylor, Albert Taylor, Virginia. There might be a connection through the Pendleton line, but it's not a straight shot to Taylor. Taylor ends up in Virginia. John Taylor, that's doubtful. American colonies, 1696. No, that's a dream. On her mom's side, there is a Warmbrot. That sounds German, and Wilson in Ohio. Nothing much to report. On the late, she died in 2011. Elizabeth Taylor. All right, the late Supreme Court Justice. So we have Justice Joan Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Okay, let's just do a quick dive on her husband. Her husband, we go to Max. There's really nothing much there, and his mother was Bear. I didn't really find much information. Her lines, though, we go through, could be Germany, Cecilia Amster, Joseph Amster, but you have a Ukraine connection. Projected haplogroup R would be Nathan Bader, Isaac Moses, Mendel, Krakow, Poland, 1785, and even Austria coming up. Nothing there. So we're going to go to Barbara Streisand. Okay, Emmanuel Streisand. This would be Kesriel. Okay, Prague. We have Prague in the Czech Republic. Czech Republic, paternal. And the maternal side, we have Rosen. Now, Streisand was married to an Elliot Goldstein, very Jewish sounding name. Now, we have Elias Goldstein and Lucille Gross. Again, nothing much. Okay, Mr. Funnyman, Adam Richard Sandler. He is definitely a haplogroup R. So Cabbage Baby linked. His father was a Stanley, and Lithuania. Once again, Lithuania. Really striking all through Mausa, 1818. Can you break through? Well, they're trying to break through. This is Berko Zelik and Israel Sandler, 1760 in Lithuania. Lithuania, just most of the way. And on the mom's side, in Levine, but here you have Russia. There's no trace after that. There's a Bean, a Gurovitz, Russia, and Lithuania. So we have a Gal Godet. So she attached to Greenstein, and there is a Adam Sandler connection, by the way, like a cousin sort of connection. So look at her father, which is really wise. Again, Ukraine, very little, even beyond the 1900s. Really sad. There's really nothing. So she is really a wise. That's her. And she then got married, a Versano, but her mom was a Greenstein. Now there's a connection because there is a immediate familial connection in Israel. She's the only one famous Jew, but then it just goes back to Ukraine or Lithuania. Look, even on her maternal side, this guy called Wolf, again connected to immediately connected to Israel. That would be going to Ayer Greenstein. She was living or was connected to Israel as to modern day Jews. But on the maternal side, it shifts right away to Ukraine. And on her wise paternal side, again, this is Ukraine. So Gal, this famous actress that everyone knows from the Marvel movies, being Wonder Woman, the Wonder Woman, she is Ukrainian, like Zelensky.
This is GTR, Genesis Timeline and Roots.
We're back, and this is episode 27 of GTR, looking at the Jewish genealogy of certain famous names, and again, reflecting on the scripture that God told Abraham and Jacob that he would bless them and that their descendants would be numerous, so numerous as the stars in the sky and the sand at the seashore. And we know today that the numbers of those persons who are claiming or said spiritual, I don't know about the land connection or the DNA connection, most would not be haplogroup E's. Some are E's, the minority. Most would be R's and J's, H's, all different categories. Even we saw G, which is sort of a hybrid, but there's roughly, say, 16 million Jews globally as of 2025, last year, which is around 0.2%. So was God correct? God is infallible. And he's talking about the sands of the seashore and stars of the sky. I saved this the final profile for the last because for me it's the most damning and egregious, shameful. So this lady, Leona Helmsley, she was a Rosenthal, born in 1920, and she passed in 2007. And she left for her dog. She left like $12 million. I mean, her husband, she married well, and few Jewish husbands, Harry Helmsley, And he even owned the Empire State Building, $5 billion in luxury real estate and holdings, but she left $12 million for her dog. And she went on record to say that the little people are the ones to pay taxes because, she and her husband were both indicted and they fell on the wrong side of the law. And I think she got like 4 years in prison. She bounced back and came out. But I posted on Facebook and I had to do a write-up. And I was asking the question, is this why that we have to recolonize Africa? And she was caught by her housekeeper saying that we don't pay taxes. Only the little people pay taxes. She was, indicted for tax evasion. She was called the Queen of Mean. And I'm like, but if you look at what's happening in the Middle East, if you're looking at the playing of the victim cards, if you look at the subsidies in the hundreds of billions every year globally, I mean, not just from the US, it's like 60, 80 billion alone. When you look at just living high on the hog, 0.2% of the global population. And I said, I have relatives even living in Israel who are my DNA cousins. And I'm not in touch with them, but, they're matching me. And I had one exchange. It's fine. I wish them well. But as a people, I commented and asked that, is this now the reason why Africa now has to be recolonized? The world needs to recolonize Africa. We're still trying to figure out what that is and what it means, because the first colonization, Berlin Conference, set of people, either those young cabbage baby descendants or Black people who are at the conference, the leaders, they decided to split up Africa and to allocate resources throughout the world, which they've been doing for 100 plus years, 140 years. And resources are going to Europe and America, just the West, benefiting, living high on the hog. So what more do they want from Africa? They want more. They want Africa's resources. And countries like Burkina Faso, with residents living on 2,000 a year, and that's per year, 2,000. And Central African Republic, we're talking about $500 for the year, not per hour. And in Western circles, professional circles, these are hourly rates. It's shameful. And it's not singling one set of folk, but if we truly are Hebrews and we as Blacks, the permanent underclass for God knows 100 plus years, then when will it end? When will it truly end for us? Some say, well, maybe in the grave, but it's just sad to see the disparity and the inequality, the inequity, which persists and is allowed to persist. So looking at this final tree, let's take a look at it. The Queen of Mean. And those are not my words. But who is she? Leona Mindy Roberts Rosenthal Helmsley, married a few times. She's now deceased, and her father, Morris, he was Russian, and the grandfather was Polish by the name of Leon Rosenthal. I don't know the true last name, but it falls off a cliff at that point. There is a distant person called an Isaiah Rosenthal connected to Germany that I was able to find. This was on my tree before I did the search for Leona Helmsley. So I did have a connection, but it still leads to the the Caucasus, as I say it, or just unknown territory. Let me deploy some euphemism. And then her mom was a popkin from Russia, and grandfather, Perzer Popkin, Russia, 1855. There's a Wolf Popkin, I'm not sure about that, and Kosov. So that's her line. Let's go to her husband. He made quite a lot of money, and you'll see the name Helmsley was really Helmsky, and he was not really, American. He's now deceased. One of her husbands, Henry, was his father, and then Peter Helmsley from Austria, and then it falls off. There's a Thomas Helmsky. Okay, and that's it. On his mom's side, we do have German Prussia roots. Karl and Johann, and Sophia and a Friedrich. But these lines terminate to Schmidt. They are short. There are some records that claim that they extend further back on his mom's side, but without knowing the haplogroups, we don't know. The jury's out. So there we have it. We have done a deep dive, the global family trees of a number of famous Jewish connected persons. And we have to go away and digest. I think we need time to process who we are, what we are, who we are, where we are. All those philosophical questions, the likes of a Black Aristotle and Black Plato, and those Greek Black figures were pondering. And we just need to figure this out for ourselves. But it's a journey that I'm happy to share and help you on this course. And it's this new territory. Every day I find something new to celebrate, something to really be sad about, but something that's striking, something that is quite riveting and profound about the genealogy search. Like my Potts family from Panama and coming most likely through New York and Ellis Island, the stories of those babies, so the Potts. I thought they were from England and they were just given land, just given, just people in South Africa just given. America, the Carnegies, Rockefellers, Vanderbilts, just given. JP Morgans, they're just forward, just given. And these kinds of handouts, government issue, government backed, it's really sad because who pays? Someone pays. In the market, there's always going to be winners and losers. In the game of life, there are winners and losers. Very rarely do you have all winners. It's not possible. We have economic scarcity. The economists would sit down and say it's not rational and possible. But this is what we're faced with. The questions, the big question, how to colonize and recolonize Africa. It's a god-awful, tragic story. It's a major tragedy to forget about the Black Holocaust, to forget about the trials and the issues that we face being a permanent underclass. I mean, we have been demoted. India has this category of untouchables. My mom's South Indian, but we have been relegated to not in the back of the bus, to the fender of the bus, of the economic bus. And it's just normal. Our abilities are challenged, questioned. We have less access to the boys' clubs and to the positions that other races just get freely, just get like it's just water. And Chris Rock referred to the black tax, and it's not sitting down and being oh, woe is me, woe is me. It's not that kind of situation, but it's a reality. It's a harsh economic reality that we face. And perhaps then, because of what's coming, and everybody rich and famous are they're building their bunkers. But what the dodo heads, and I call them, dodo heads, don't realize someone has to deliver supplies to that bunker. So you're nice and situated below ground for a couple of years. But when you do run out, someone has to deliver. Do you trust the persons who will deliver to you? Because your address will be known. Oh yeah, you can jettison and just jet off to the stars, another planet. But then the atmosphere not conducive, you're reliant that the systems will work. And if the systems fail, you can't really call home and say, I need a taxi to come to Earth because I'm up there and I need to come back home and I lack oxygen and lack, the living essentials. So bunker, perhaps, and because this is coming to a final cataclysmic eschatology type event, this is last day events that God is preparing, and this is the comforting note on those melanated. God is preparing his beloved. We're all God's people, and I'm convinced of that. Red and yellow, black and white, but created black in his image. Sorry. And this is what we have been created and designed. We communicate with the Son. We hear and sense the world in different ways. I mean, frequencies and all of this sort of thing that's hidden and lost knowledge we can tap into. And who we are, what we are. So he's preparing us. The Bible says the sun is going to get hotter. We see the weather is kind of wonky now. And manipulation may be the case. But he's preparing his people for the final plagues, for the final hours where we can do with less. And people do say that, man, a Jamaican, if something is wrong, that car stalls, he can make it work. And they say about it, black people are very, creative and innovative. Yes, we can do with less. So when the less comes, there'll be no panic. And oh my God, I don't have my cappuccino. I can't run out to the bodega. I don't have that luxury, and the AC is off. These things are just everyday life for people of color, and those other people, whether it be the Asian category, not all of them, but the Asian, as they refer to as the buffer class, and but Asian, and then the whites. They enjoy the luxury and the privileges that we don't have access to. Then they will have the major issues adjusting when this time of Jacob comes about, and it is coming. So let us be comforted with those words of the Bible and God's promises that he will redeem us all. And this song, remember, this world is not my own. I'm just passing through. I recall the words of a song my dad sang, and it's true right here for us, GTR, as we explore and we contemplate our destinies, our futures. Let us think Christ-centric. Christocentric. Let's stay our thoughts on elevated, higher spiritual planes, and let's elevate that discussion. I know it's quick to say rush to anger and feel upset about the inequalities and the inequities and the past. But I'm comforted to know that God is preparing his people. This is a Sabbath day. Keep it holy and worship God. Worship the true melanated black image and face of God as we are his people. And there's a song that we could sing, the 144,000, not a literal number, but the 144, that there could be yellow, white, pink, purple people in heaven. But there's a song, and oh, brothers can put it down, brothers can sing. There'll be a song that we can sing that no other persons on this earth could sing, because of what we have endured, what we had to put up with in the face of gross excess and extravagance. And we can survive on crumbs and pennies. So that's it for me. That's a wrap. That's episode 27, GTR, a deep dive into certain Jewish family trees and roots. Thank you. Good day, good evening, good night.